On her 57th birthday, Jennifer Aniston quietly said a sentence that no one expected. "He is the love of my life." Not after fairy tale wedding, not before betrayal, but after divorce. Why would the woman the world pitied for so long say this? Now tonight, we uncover the story Hollywood never fully told. You want to know why Jennifer Aniston held on so tight? You have to go back to a single afternoon in 1978. She was 9 years old. She went to a friend's birthday party, ate cake, played games, and had a normal day. But her father, John, was just gone. No note on the counter, no dramatic goodbye in the driveway, just an empty space where a parent used to be. For a little girl, that's not just a divorce. It taught her a brutal lesson before she even hit double digits. The people you love can evaporate while you aren't looking. That's the thing about Jen. People see the golden girl from Friends, but she was raised in a house that felt like a permanent audition. Her mother, Nancy Dow, was a stunning actress who treated beauty like a job requirement. She was hard on Jen, critical about her weight, her hair, the way she spoke. Jen spent her whole youth trying to be perfect enough to keep people from leaving. But the harder she tried, the more she felt like she was failing. Before Brad Pitt ever entered the frame, she was already cycling through relationships looking for that one person who would finally stay. Most people forget about Charlie Schlatter. They met on the set of the Ferris Bueller TV show in the early 90s. It was one of those intense, high-energy set romances that burns out as fast as it starts. Then there was Adam Duritz, the lead singer of Counting Crows. It was the mid-90s. He was the king of moody rock, and for a minute, Jen was living that life. But it wasn't a match. The one that really hit home, though, was Tate Donovan. By 1995, Jen was the most famous woman on television, and she and Tate were Hollywood royalty. They were together for 3 years. They were engaged. He even played her love interest, Joshua, on Friends. Imagine the pressure trying to navigate a real-life engagement while the whole world is watching you flirt with the same man on a soundstage. When that ended in 1998, it wasn't just a breakup, it was another confirmation of her oldest fear. She was successful, she was rich, she was America's sweetheart. And yet, she was still the woman who couldn't get a man to stick around for the series finale. So when she finally landed on the set of Friends, the fame actually felt like noise. Rachel Green became a symbol of independence for millions of women, but behind the scenes, Jennifer was the one who was constantly building the safety net. She was the one who had the cast over for dinner every night. She was the one who turned a group of actors into a family. She was essentially trying to build the stable home on a Hollywood lot that she never had in her actual life. The irony is enough to make you shake your head. She was the most desired woman on the planet, but internally, she felt completely disposable. She was living in a state of hypervigilance, making $1 million an episode, but still waiting for the floor to drop out from under her. She was a woman who had conquered the world, but was still that 9-year-old girl coming home to an empty house. And that's when Brad Pitt walked in. In 1998, the most powerful managers in Hollywood sat down and decided to play God. They set up a blind date between the two biggest names on their roster, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. It wasn't some romantic meet-cute at a coffee shop. It was a high-stakes business merger that just happened to catch fire. Brad was fresh off a very public, very cool breakup with Gwyneth Paltrow. Jen was finally done with the drama of Tate Donovan. They were the two most valuable variables in the Hollywood equation. And when they finally sat down for dinner, the chemistry was so instant, it was almost terrifying. For a woman like Jen, who had spent her life navigating her mother's sharp critiques and her father's sudden disappearance, Brad felt like a warm breeze. He was charming, sure, but he offered something she'd been starving for since she was 9 years old, the promise of a fortress. He looked her in the eye and convinced her that he was the guy who would finally stay. On July 29, 2000, they decided to tell the world they were serious. They stood on a cliffside in Malibu and threw a wedding that the industry still talks about in hushed tone. It was $1 million spectacle in an era when $1 million actually meant something. We're talking 50,000 flowers, mostly roses, and wisteria covering every inch of the estate. There were 4 bands, a gospel choir, and a massive fireworks display that lit up the Pacific Ocean. It was a royal coronation for the new king and queen of Hollywood. But if you ask the people who were actually there, the wow moment wasn't the fireworks, it was the vow. Jennifer stood there in a floor-length white gown and promised to make Brad his favorite banana milkshake whenever he wanted. Brad looked back and promised to always find a compromise on the thermostat. To the 200 A-list guests, it was a cute, down-to-earth moment. But to Jen, it was a sacred contract. She was building a home out of milkshakes and air conditioning settings. She thought she had finally found a seat at a table that wouldn't break. For the next 5 years, they were untouchable. They didn't just walk red carpets, they owned them, moving through the crowds like a single, perfectly coordinated organism. They weren't just actors anymore. They were architects of the industry launching Plan B Entertainment together. They were building a business, a brand, and what Jen believed was a permanent future. The thing is, Brad used to go around telling every reporter who would listen that he wanted a van load of kids. He talked about having 7 children, about a house full of noise and chaos. Jennifer believed him. She leaned into that vision, thinking she had finally found the partner who shared her dream of a loud, stable family. But beneath the imperial facade, the shadows were already starting to stretch. While Jen was getting ready to trade the studio lights for a nursery, Brad was becoming restless. He was a man who thrived on creative upheaval, a man who was always searching for a script he hadn't yet found. He started pulling away, looking for a different kind of life, a wilder, more unpredictable energy that didn't fit into a Malibu living room. Jennifer was busy making the milkshakes, never realizing that her husband had already stopped being hungry for the life they had built together. The dream was still beautiful, but the man she loved was already looking for the exit. The air inside their Beverly Hills mansion started to feel different around 2003. On the outside, they were still the golden couple, the 2 people every magazine editor wanted on their cover. But Jennifer was beginning to realize that you can't build a future on a foundation of maybe. She was ready. She wanted the nursery, the strollers, the slowing down of a career that had already given her everything. She was vocal about it too. She told reporters she was looking forward to motherhood, believing that the man who once talked about a van load of kids was standing right there beside her. Brad, however, wasn't standing still. He was vibrating with a restless energy that didn't fit into the quiet domestic life Jennifer was trying to curate. He seemed bored with the perfect script. He was looking for something more chaotic, something that would set his world on fire again. For him, the domestic peace they had built wasn't a sanctuary. It was starting to feel like a dead end. Then came that 2004 interview with W magazine. It's a moment that still makes people pause when they look back at the wreckage. When the reporter asked her if Brad was the love of her life, Jen gave an answer that should have been a siren. She said he is a great love. She left out the most important word. It was a tiny whispered admission of a gap that was already too wide to bridge. She could feel him slipping away into a world she didn't belong, to a world where her quiet dreams of a suburban refuge were being drowned out by his need for something else. Then came the production of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That set was a powder keg. Jennifer wasn't there, but she could feel the heat from miles away. Angelina didn't just walk into the narrative, she blew the doors off it. Jennifer admits now that she sensed the shift long before the tabloids caught up. January 2005. They went to Anguilla with Courtney Cox and David Arquette. One last attempt to save the unsavable. It didn't work. A few days later, they released that joint statement about respect and kindness. But Hollywood doesn't trade in kindness. It trades in blood. The real blow, the one that turned her private pain into a public dissection, happened a few months later. Those photos of Brad and Angelina on that beach in Kenya with Maddox surfaced. That wasn't just a headline. It was a public execution of Jennifer's dignity. Imagine being the most famous woman in the world and having your husband's new life slapped on every supermarket checkout stand while you're still trying to process the divorce papers. The media turned her life into a spectator sport. They created Team Jen and Team Angelina t-shirts, literally making money off the fact that a woman had been replaced. Jennifer became the poster child for the abandoned woman. It was a level of public humiliation that is almost historically unprecedented. Every move she made was compared to the new Brangelina empire. Through all of it, Jen didn't scream. She didn't go on a crying tour. She waited months before giving one interview to where she used a single sharp word to describe the situation. Uncool. That was her only weapon, her dignity. She refused to play the victim, even as the world tried to drown her in pity. She watched from the sideline as Brad and Angelina built a global dynasty, adopting children and commanding the world stage with their activism. Every headline about their perfect blended family was a salt rub into the wound of the life Jennifer had been promised on that Malibu cliffside in 2000. She was the woman who stayed behind in the house they built, while the man she loved ran toward a future she was never even invited to see. She was left with the silence, the questions, and a $200 million legacy that now felt like a hollow trophy for a life that had been deleted in front of her eyes. For 15 long years, Jennifer Aniston lived in a world where her own name was never quite enough. She was America's sweetheart, sure, but she was also the permanent resident of a tabloid echo chamber that refused to let the fire of 2005 die down. She tried to move on. She found Justin Theroux in 2011, a man who offered a completely different frequency, intellectual, edgy, and comfortable in the shadows of New York. They married in 2015, but even in that new fortress of privacy, the ghost of Brad Pitt was always sitting at the table. Every interview she gave for a decade and a half was a minefield. It didn't matter if she was promoting a new movie or a new business venture. The industry vultures always circled back to the same wreckage. They wanted to know about his latest child, his latest award, or his latest red carpet appearance with Angelina. The media had turned Jennifer's life into a scorecard, a perpetual comparison where she was constantly painted as the lonely woman while the man who left her was building a global empire. It was a level of public scrutiny that would have made anyone else bitter, but Jennifer stayed quiet. She worked, she smiled, and she performed the role the world demanded of her. But while the world was busy scavenging her past for clicks, something quiet and unexpected was happening in the background. The connection between Brad and Jen never actually snapped, it just went underground. There were the secret threads, those low-key private check-ins that happened away from the flashbulbs, a phone call on a birthday, a supportive message when she lost a parent, a quiet, "I'm thinking of you during the hard season." It wasn't about romance, and it certainly wasn't about a reunion fantasy. It was about the fact that they had survived the absolute insanity of their early success together. They shared a history that no one else understood, and as they both got older, they realized that 5 years of a shared life couldn't and shouldn't be erased just because the ending was ugly. Jennifer watched the rise and fall of the Brangelina era with a stoic, almost detached observation, while the public saw a power couple conquering the world. Jennifer saw the same patterns of intensity and creative upheaval that had once pushed her to the brink. She stayed in her lane, building a life of stability and true friendships. Then came 2016, the year the golden image shattered into a million pieces. The divorce between Brad and Angelina wasn't a polite press release. It was a moral apocalypse. Suddenly, the man who had been painted as the perfect hero for a decade was revealed to be a man drowning in internal personal demons. The stories from that private jet incident and the total collapse of his domestic world turned the industry upside down. For the first time, Brad Pitt wasn't untouchable. He was a man admitting to a long-standing battle with the bottle and a profound crisis of self. He was unmoored, facing a messy public custody battle and a total reassessment of who he was when the cameras stopped rolling. This is where the story takes its most human turn. This is the conflict that none of us saw coming. Jennifer saw a Brad who was finally undeniably human. He wasn't the prince who had left her on a beach in 2005. He was a survivor who was finally owning his mistakes. In 2019, when he slipped through the back door of her 50th birthday party wearing a baseball cap, it wasn't a publicity stunt. It was an olive branch. He was there to acknowledge the person he had hurt the most. The world got its wow moment a few months later at the 2020 SAG Awards. We all remember the photos, the way he grabbed her wrist as she walked away. The shared smile that looked like it belonged to two people in a crowded room who were the only ones who knew the truth. The internet went into a frenzy, screaming about a reunion. But if you look closer at Jennifer's face in those shots, You don't see a woman looking for a second chance at a failed marriage. You see a woman who is witnessing an atonement. She realized that the man standing in front of her, sober, humbled, and carrying the scars of his own spectacular failures, was finally the person she had always wanted him to be. He was real. The polished golden boy facade had been burned away, leaving behind a man who could finally apologize without a script. And in that recognition, the anger she'd been holding onto for nearly 20 years finally evaporated. It was a hollowed-out truth. She realized that she didn't need to hate him anymore because the person who betrayed her didn't exist anymore. For 15 years, she had been Rachel, the woman the world felt sorry for. But as she watched Brad rebuild himself from the ashes of his own making, Jennifer reclaimed her own narrative. She understood that their connection was permanent, not because it was perfect, but because it was the crucible that made her who she is today. She spent those years under the 30-foot shadow of his fame and his betrayal, only to realize that the shadow was just an illusion. When the lights of Brangelina finally went out, Jennifer Aniston was the one still standing whole and independent, while the man she once thought was her forever was finally learning how to walk on his own 2 feet. It was the ultimate unspoken closure, a long, slow fade to black on the pain, and a fresh start for a friendship that had finally earned its peace. When Jennifer Aniston finally said the words, "He is the love of my life," she wasn't talking about a storybook ending. She was talking about the impact. She's admitting that Brad Pitt was the architect of her world. He was the person who taught her how to survive the unthinkable. By taking her through the highest peaks of happiness and the darkest alleys of public humiliation, he accidentally forged the woman she is today. A love of your life isn't always the one who stays until the credits roll. Sometimes it's the one who breaks you so completely that you have to rebuild yourself from the ground up, stronger than you ever would have been otherwise. She isn't trying to erase what happened in 2005. She's doing something much harder. She's owning the legacy of that pain. She's acknowledging that despite the betrayal and the Hollywood noise, her heart still knows the frequency of the man who first made her believe in the dream. This confession is a masterclass in growing up. It's a total refusal to be the victim. In a town that demands you either have a perfect marriage or a better rivalry, Jennifer has found her own middle ground. She's proving that some loves are just paused, not ended. Not because there's a sequel coming, but because the mark they left is permanent. She spent her 57th birthday telling the world she's done hating him to feel whole. She's done trying to forget just to move on. The lesson here is brutal, but necessary. You can love the person who hurt you. You can find value in a connection that failed. You can stand in the wreckage of a massive Hollywood legacy and realize that the most important thing wasn't the contract or the ring. It was the truth of how much you cared. So I have to ask you, if you were in her shoes, would you have the courage to say those words? Would you name the person who broke your heart as the love of your life? Tell us your truth in the comments. We want to hear about the loves that never truly leave us. Make sure to like and subscribe as we continue to pull back the curtain on the real lives behind the Hollywood masks.